actually a mirror. King has put away the lands for the weekend.
Yeah, not playing lands. He's playing 4-color control as well.
It looks like we're packing up going to game 3 here, assuming that game total is correct up top.
Yeah, well, they're still shuffling, so I'm just going to go ahead and assume so. Yeah, both on 4-color control. So this is a deck, we kind of mentioned that it started seeing some play for this list in the Legacy community. Some of the Czech teams were playing it. It started to move over here. This is kind of this is like an evolution of the Sultai decks. There's maybe Sultai Delverir, or maybe the decks that Reed Duke used to win the GP. Not as heavy on mana creatures. They no longer play Noble Hierarch. They still play Deathrite Shaman. A lot of copies of Leovold, both players playing 2. A lot of copies of Baleful Strix and Snapcaster Mage. Neither player has True Name Nemesis in their main. Neither player has True Name Nemesis in their sideboard. This is just a control mirror.
And these decks are just really configured, as opposed to the Reed Duke Sultai deck, to just have more business. They don't care about creatures that attack and block. They don't care about creatures that just produce mana and influence combat. This is all value all the time. Value and interactive spells.
Yeah, looking at some of the differences between the two players here. Looking at their sideboards, this is going to be a lot of the same cards, really, between the two decks. They're on very similar lists here.
I'd be curious to know whether or not both players have identified that the opponent is not on True Name Nemesis.
Right, if there's any Diabolic Edicts in either player's deck.
Edict is still totally reasonable against some of the stuff in the deck. You can get Leovold off the table, for example, if you're able to keep things clean otherwise. So it is pretty bad against Baleful Strix, Snapcaster Mage. The Edict, if you identify your opponent does not have True Nemesis, you probably just don't want this card in your deck.
Oliver Chu right now has had one of the best years in Magic for the youngster here. Won Rookie of the Year last year, was the runner-up at Worlds. Just recently was the champion of the Vintage Super League as well. Platinum Pro this year. Really, I think one of the first times we've seen him here on the SCG Tour. Had a chance to first play. I played against his team at the Team GP last weekend. First time interacting with him.
Who won?
Our team won, but Oliver did as well. Because he is a powerful magician.
Yeah. It would be very difficult to argue against that position.
Yeah. Both players starting off with Deathrite Shamans. Oliver, a pair of Jaces in hand. Spell Snare as well. Looks like he's going to go ahead and lead on Brainstorm. Immediately drawing 3. Lightning Bolt, Kolaghan's Command, Thoughtseize. He only has a second land in hand. He might be Brainstorm locked here.
If he has something like Ponder to shuffle some cards away.
Yeah, puts Jace and something else back. Also note there's only one fetch land in the graveyards right now, and Oliver has priority on the Deathrite Shaman interaction to see how he wants to use that.
Looks like he has access to Lightning Bolt, Thoughtseize here, which would be a pretty solid turn.
Okay, actually, no, he does have another land. There's an island here, so he has lands 2 and 3, so not bad. I don't know if he has a shuffle effect, so the Brainstorm still did some work here. It's not going to be a perfect one, but good enough.
Yeah, sometimes you brainstorm and just all the cards you see are good.
Yeah, Thoughtseize here. We'll get a look at Kevin King's hand. It's going to be 2 lands, 2 Jaces, Snapcaster, Strix.
Both players a little heavy on Jace here in the early game.
Yeah, Oliver had 2. He put 1 back on his Brainstorm, but as I kind of mentioned before, he doesn't actually have a way to shuffle. See what Oliver wants to take here. By taking the Strix, Kevin's hand is very low speed. And that's what Oliver's going to do. Takes Strix, and looks like we're going to bolt down the Deathrite Shaman.
But now King is actually very far behind.
Yeah, King draws another land. His hand is 3 lands, Snapcaster, 2 Jaces. No cards in yard to Snapcast. There's not much going on.
It looks like neither player actually on Wasteland here. So players will just be able to go up the curve and cast Jace when they get there.
3rd land from Oliver and a pass. We don't know if he has a 4th land. Also note there's no fetch land in either player's graveyard yet. So Oliver does have Jace. However, No lands. Now Kevin's going to put some lands in the yard for him as he casts Leovold here.
That was a solid pickup.
Solid card here. We'll see if Oliver has a response. He's going to go to work, eating an instant out of the yard. Or sorcery, rather. Kevin takes 2.
Yeah, Oliver with Spell Snare as his interactive card. That'll matter if the Snapcaster Mage in Kevin's hand ever becomes good, but it's not going to solve the Leovold problem.
No, another Jace here drawn for Oliver. So his 4th land comes courtesy of Kevin as he plays Jace.
And Jace really only has access to 2 modes here. You certainly don't want to brainstorm against Leovold, though.
Yep.
Bouncing that will allow King to draw a card.
He draws a card, but Oliver gets board advantage here. Jace lands. I suppose the other option of just brainstorming is a little. That's poor because then all it takes is one.
Well, brainstorming against Leovold, you just put 2 cards from your hand on top of your deck.
Never mind.
I would strongly advise against that play.
That's why. What a. Yeah, okay. I might have lost the game. All right, got it. Brainstorm from Kevin King. He had the option to play a land and cast Jace there. He decides against it. Curious what he's looking for here. He did find a lightning bolt. See a huge grip of cards here from Kevin.
The Deathrite Shaman for Oliver actually represents 2 colors of mana. It's his only way to make green and red mana currently. Just 2 underground scenes on an island otherwise. Cleaning that up would be pretty significant. Also, if he just wants to lightning bolt down the Jace, that's also a pretty significant thing this turn.
That's what I was wondering, is which card is he going to lightning bolt? You know, I don't particularly like letting my opponents sit with Jason play.
If he lightning bolts down the Deathrite Shaman, then he'll have access to lightning bolt later, if that's what he wants to do.
Baleful Strix will draw a card. Kevin did want one of the cards that he put back. Looks like it was a copy of Fatal Push. Then he cracks a fetch land.
Yeah, really nice sequencing by King there. He identified that he wanted all but one of the cards that he had access to. Use the Strix to draw one back.
Bolts down the Jace, leaves Fatal Push in his hand for Deathrite. But Oliver has another Jace in hand. Deathrite's going to use mana from Kevin's graveyard again. Casts a second Jace, does Oliver too. But he's got to decide what he wants to do with it. Spell Snare, Kolaghan's Command, one other in Oliver's hand. He is very down on cards, so he's going to start with a Brainstorm. Gets a Snapcaster Mage, another Spell Snare, and a Ponder. Does not find the land, though.
He found some tools that'll make it not terribly difficult to find a land on the following turn, but he's going to have to invest some mana in them anyway.
Well, there's still some problem. Remember, Kevin, we already know for next turn, can Fatal Push the Deathrite Shaman and cast Leovold. And now those tools, like that Ponder in the face of a Leovold, that doesn't work.
Kevin also has Lightning Bolt in his graveyard, Snapcaster Mage in hand, and 2 has Spell Snare down because he did not find the land there.
Yeah, he really needed to hit, and that was why he brainstormed, just because he put such a high priority on the land drop. So Kevin drawing land 5 here. Got a lot of options. He's going to start by pushing the Deathrite. We'll see Snap Bolt or Leovold are his options. Looks like he's giving priority to Jace. Here's Snapcaster on Bolt. Bolt down the Mind Sculptor and attack for 1.
And with this battlefield, it makes it so even something like another Jace from Oliver would not be very significant. Though it looks like only... We'll see what he's able to follow up with on this turn.
Ponder by Oliver. Land, Fatal Push, something. He has to shuffle. Also of note, Oliver only has 2 colors of mana right now.
Yeah, with that Shaman out of the way. That was his only red and green mana source.
But he needs a lot of help here. Kevin is threatening next turn. Oliver knows there's a Leovold in Kevin's hand. What we know is there's also a Jace. Actually, no, Oliver also knows there's a Jace there.
Yeah, and Oliver is out of Jaces himself. Just the 2 copies in his deck.
Yeah, so he knew about the Snapcaster Mage. When he brainstormed that Jace, he was very much hoping to hit a land for Snare.
Yes.
Here's Ponder. Can he recover? Baleful Strix, Pyroblast, Ponder. Just He just can't seem to get a land for the life of him.
If it was castable, the Pyroblast is a nice spell, but this is just not going to do it.
So no, I mean, it's almost like he has to just shuffle again to go for the land. I mean, you play Ponder because it lets you see this many cards, but this is certainly running well below expectation.
Right.
And Oliver will shuffle again. His hand is still powerful.
And this is going to happen in some number of games. He's playing a 4-color deck with some basic lands.
And draws Leovold, can't cast. Kevin, he can cast his spells though. He draws Engineer Explosives for the turn. There's one blue, one Underground Sea up. Is there anything Kevin has to fear before he jams Jace? Unsure. He'll go with Leovold instead. Swings 3. Oliver's down to 14. Says go Engineer Explosive, Jace, and one other in Kevin's hand. Oliver draws. Looks like a copy of Deathrite Shaman.
Deathrite Shaman's fine, but it has to survive. The odds of that are pretty slim from here.
Well, yeah, I mean, if Kevin doesn't have the answer in his hand already, he has the Jace.
And with that Leovold coming down, Kevin's now very far ahead on the battlefield, and it's hard for Oliver to actually make inroads on that. Anything that targets this stuff is just going to draw Kevin another card.
Gonna lead on Deathrite Shaman. You see him shuffle Strix to the front of his hand. That could hit him his land drop. Oh, except there's Leovold, so he'll just cast Strix. Says go.
That Leovold card's mighty good.
Ponder, picked up from Kevin. Casts. Forked Bolt, Brainstorm, and a land for Kevin King. Gonna leave them there and draw a card.
Yeah, Fork Bolt to get that Baleful Strix out of the way is pretty strong.
1 and 1 takes care of the Strix. Oliver down to 13.
And he really gets to pressure Oliver's life total here and makes it really difficult for Oliver to find what he needs because all of his cantrip cards are pretty much dead in the face of that Leovold.
Engineered Explosives on 1. Cracks it, takes care of the Deathrite Shaman. I like how Kevin's cleaning up. Swings 6, puts Oliver down to 7. And he's doing all this without casting the Jace in his hand.
Yeah, having Jace backup is real nice.
All right, Oliver hits a land. Many turns late, but what can he do with it?
Fetch land does put him down to 6, so
yeah.
If Kevin's able to interact with whatever he does, he just has lethal on the table now.
Outside of Deathrite Shaman, there isn't life gain in his deck. So his life total is likely to remain low for the whole game. Uses Snapcaster to bolt Leovold. Kevin draws another card off that. Swinging again, Snapcaster's trade, Oliver goes to 5. He's actually taking care of most of Kevin's creatures. Now there's still the problem of this Jace. Kevin will cast. And he brainstorms. Picked up, you know, your favorite, that Knight's Whisper.
That one looks a little less effective than the second Baleful Strix in the mix.
Here's the second Strix, draws a card, does Kevin, but that's going to be spell snared. Put that one back. And a go. So not much, the clock has been slowed down. Oliver's at 5, Kevin only has 1 power, but there's still all the problem of the Planeswalker. Oliver checks his yard. Is there another lightning bolt there? Not yet.
And Oliver picked up a Leovold, but he has that Badlands there. That was his red source. There's no Taiga in this deck, so he couldn't have fixed everything.
Snapcaster from Oliver on Ponder. He's hoping to find lightning bolts. He does not find it. Shuffles. See, he left up not a blue mana, but he left up his 1 red source here. Actually, Oliver only plays, correction here, Oliver only plays 1 lightning bolt, but he does play a Pyroblast.
That'd be good.
one main, one board on Pyroblast. So.
And with Oliver unable to deal with the Jace that turn, he's seen enough. He's out of this game. Some mana woes really stopped him. Not hitting the land for the spell snare on that critical turn there was very significant here.
You know, and even you saw some strength there from Oliver. Having so few resources, he's able to do a lot with the few resources he had. Getting down to the point where, had he, say, hit the Pyroblast on that Ponder, there was a chance he could win, which is